Because 62 can't go into 31, we can add a 0 to this place value without changing the value of the dividend, which allows us to bring the 0 down and see how many times 62 can go into 310. We know from our multiples table that 62 can go into 310 5 times. And when we multiply, we get 310. And then when we subtract, we can be done. Because our decimal place was properly placed in our quotient, we know the answer is 2.5 or 2.5. Okay, moving on to the last page of our review. We're going to talk about the last topic from Module 2, which is dividing fractions. So, number 1, 3/4 divided by 6. We know that when we're dividing fractions, both numbers need to be a fraction in order for our process to work. So the first step, we're just going to rewrite this problem and change our whole number 6 into a fraction, 6/1. So we have just rewritten the problem. At this point, we have not changed anything. So we know to divide our fractions, we keep the first fraction the same. We change our division to multiplication, and we flip or use the reciprocal of the second fraction. So 3/4 divided by 6/1 is the same as 3/4 times 1/6. Dividing by a number is the same as multiplying by its reciprocal. When we multiply this out, we multiply the numerators 3 times 1, and we multiply the denominators, and we get 3/24. You always want to have your answer in simplest form, so we know the greatest common factor of 3 and 24 is 3. We can divide the numerator and denominator by 3 to get a fraction in simplest form of 1/8. Okay, number 2, 6 divided by 3/8. Again, we have a whole number in this problem. We can easily make a whole number a fraction by putting that whole number over 1. So I'm first going to rewrite this problem to ensure that both numbers are in fraction form. And then the process, keep the first fraction, change from division to multiplication, and flip the second fraction. And then we're ready to multiply. 6 times 8 is 48. 1 times 3 is 3. And again, you never want to leave your fraction in improper form. So in order for us to finish this problem, we want to convert this to a mixed number or a whole number. 48 divided by 3, we could first simplify, dividing both the numerator and the denominator by 3 to get 16/1, which converts to the whole number 16. Number 3, we have a mixed number divided by a fraction. And when we talked about this process, our very first step is to get this mixed number converted to an improper fraction. In order to do that, you multiply the denominator times the whole number. 8 times 5 is 40. Then we add the numerator. 40 plus 5 is 45, and you keep that denominator the same. The rest of the problem stays the same in this first step. So the first step, all we're doing is changing that improper fraction to, changing the mixed number to an improper fraction. Everything else stays the same in that first step. The second step is where you can do your keep the first fraction, change to multiplication, and flip the second fraction. At this point, you can multiply. Some of us would choose to simplify these fractions before we multiply. If you look at the numerator of the first factor and the denominator of the second factor, we know we can factor a 9 out of both of those numbers, leaving a 5 and a 1. And the 8 and 10, we can factor out a 2, which leaves a 4 and a 5. Now these numbers are just a little bit easier to multiply. 5 times 5 is 25. 4 times 1 is 4. We know that 4 can go into 25 6 whole times with 1 left over, keeping that denominator the same. Our answer is 6 1/4. And the last problem, number 4. 3/5 divided by 3 1/7. This one looks a lot like number 3. We have a mixed number and a fraction. On number 4, we have a fraction and a mixed number. Our process is going to be the same. First step is just to convert this mixed number to an improper fraction. 7 times 3 is 21, plus 1 is 22. We keep the denominator the same. Everything else in the problem stays the same in this first step. Only thing we changed was that mixed number. We changed the form. In the second step, now we can do our keep the first fraction, change to multiplication, and flip that second fraction. And now we're ready to multiply. 3 times 7 is 21. 5 times 22 is 110. And in this case, there are no common factors, so we're already in simplest form. And that's the end of the review for Module 2, dividing fractions and calculating with decimals.